Hi, everybody. Good morning. So I am going to, as usual, start with a little bit of review. But what I'm wanting you to do is when I'm reviewing it, I want you to pay attention to the thread. Because one of the things I was doing this morning is I was really looking at how, we're talking about the I Create What I Believe program. But I've actually designed 3 programs. And the first program I designed when I was in my 20s, and it was during the time that I taught aerial movement and tumbling. And that system I designed was called acrobatic movement meditation. What I did is I took movements like a handstand or a cartwheel, and I broke it into tiny, tiny, tiny little segments. It's like, just like I've done with the I Create What I Believe, where, we start out with the scribbling and then we look at the circles, we look at the lines, we look at how that works. So I did that with people and discovered that adults who had never, ever, ever done any tumbling, and one of my students was this 65-year-old man who showed up in class and said, I've always wanted to be able to do this. Is it possible? And I said, I'm up for the challenge if you're up for the challenge. So just think about a 65-year-old body who had not been physical his whole life and decided that he wanted to be able to do this. So, but breaking things into tiny little segments, sound bites, think of it as sound bites, and making the bites small enough that his body, his mind could register and integrate it, that he was successful. I mean, he actually was successful. And so that was very cool. So from there, the next system I developed was, is featured in my first book, which is called The Beckoning Song of Your Soul. And what I did is that I took what I learned from the movement, but I brought it down into a smaller package. And so what that system, it does is you start out with the breath, and then you go from there with the sound of your voice. And from there, you notice how your body moves from the voice. And then from there, you start seeing the patterns. So I Create What I Believe system is actually the backwards version of that. Is you start out with the visual, and then you become aware of the frequency and the sound and the way that it impacts your body. And you develop your tools, but they're visual tools and they're subtle. So, the very first system was big, it was cartwheels and handstands and pipes and all that kind of stuff. And then it got like, oh, we can do this smaller. Oh, we can do this in a way that's even more disguised. So we're playing with the biology, but we're trying to find a way to disguise what we're doing so that we can use it in mainstream life and not look weird. And it's like we can't, yes, people walk down the street talking to themselves now because they have these things in their ears and they're, but, there's still a certain degree that we have to keep a kind of a persona out in the world. So, and so this morning when I was thinking about it, I was like, wow, wait a minute. This actually started when I was really young, because I can remember being in school, and it must have been somewhere around 4th or 5th grade or something like that, maybe a little earlier. And we were studying about different machinery. And one of the things that fascinated me was a baler. Does anyone know what a baler is? Yeah, a baler is where they cut the hay or the straw, and then this machine comes, and it's all laid down on the ground, and this machine comes along and puts it into bales, into these blocks. And I used to turn my bicycle upside down and use the pedals, look at the movement, the movement, the movement. And I would put grass in in it, and, but I had this pretend baler, And whenever I was stressed, I'd turn my bicycle upside down and I would bale hay. So what I'm wanting you to do today, as I review and look at things, is think about things that you've done through your life. There's got to be a thread. Did you throw balls? Did you ride a bike? Did you cook? Did you draw? Did you, what is it that you innately went to? What is your form, basically? Because, I'm teaching you a form here, but I want you to translate it into your life, into you, because this is about you becoming whole, you becoming more of yourself, being comfortable with yourself, being comfortable with the size and the dimension and the age and, all aspects of yourself. You're just like kind of going, hey, I'm cool. So, look at those threads. So, it was really fascinating for me to kind of go, oh, I started this whole thing with my baler. And I probably started it before then, but look at the thread that's gone through your life. And then, use the stuff that I'm teaching you to kind of translate that so that you have, like a series of wires that all weave together. And that's going to give you a stronger sense of yourself and your purpose. And one of the things that I've read a lot about recently is that having a sense of purpose is a critical factor in terms of longevity. Is that you have to matter. Who you are and what you have to offer has to matter. But it doesn't mean that you have to do the next big, huge project. You don't have to be a Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, or it doesn't have to be that big. It can be something very, very simple. Very simple. And it can be just that, you're a great hugger. You give really good hugs and you can identify. I have a friend who is an acupuncturist, and she was talking about how one of the things that's happened with her as she's evolved and gone through different things is that her sensitivity, that when somebody walks in a room, she can immediately feel their depletion level. I mean, she knows, like, oh, their spleen's off, oh, the liver's off, oh, this is off. And then she finds a way to, if they're coming over for tea, she serves them, what they need. She doesn't say anything. She just happens to have lemon cookies. It's like, oh, here, you want some lemon cookies? I mean, it's disguise it. We don't have to talk about it. We can just be present with each other. And the more you use these tools and you adapt them for yourself, the easier it's going to be. Because it's not supposed to be a big project. I had this theory, and I'm almost 73, is that, if it's a struggle, then I'm not supposed to be doing it. I have decided that the word struggle is officially going to be deleted from my vocabulary on my 73rd birthday next month. So it's not going to exist in my vocabulary. Other people can have it. Other people can think they can impose it on me, but it does not exist in my vocabulary anymore next month. So yeah, it's like, yeah, okay. So this is how our body tells us we're going down the right road or not the right road, okay? So that's the preface of, how I'm kind of wanting you to look at today. So in the first activity, the Just Scribble where we did individual hands, and then we did both hands together, and then we did the alternating. The focus there was finding your rhythm, you know, or another way of looking at it is finding your melody. Now, Dr. Hans Jenny, I've mentioned him, I think, before, did a lot of research, and his research showed that form, our form, how we look, how we, is the result of a frequency. And I've taken that a step further, you know, and watching my thread. And then I actually think each one of us is like a little piece of sheet music. We're a melody. And we kind of walk through life doing our melody. And sometimes, you know, if we're playing, the melody's being played on a piano, the keys stick, you know, or if it's a string instrument, you know, the strings out of tune. Sometimes we're out of tune and then, it doesn't sound so good. So then we have to tune it up. But get to know your melody. And how do you know it's your melody? You're happy. You're happy. It's real simple. That's how the body says, hey, cool, we're cool. And if you're not happy, that's when you use the tools to figure out what's off. Okay, so then we go into the second activity, which was the circles and lines. And there we were looking for the pattern. The patterns that relax the body and stimulate the body. Or, you know, calm the system or focus the system. You know, whatever word seems right to you. So you find your own word, but it's an energetic opposite. It's like, do you need more stimulation or less stimulation? Now, we live in a culture that is a stimulation junkie. And more people are getting burned out because we're trying to stay up with this. This is like, you know, like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And the body isn't designed for that. It's just not designed to just keep going and going and going and going and going. Yeah, you get an adrenaline high, but eventually you burn everything out. And then you crash. And then you know, then what happens when you crash, okay, is the body is stressed. So what takes over? This part of the mind. And what's there? All of the beliefs and all the perceptions and all those experiences you had when you were a child. And unfortunately, the statistics say that about 70% of that is negative. So if you find yourself in a downward spiral, being depressed, being like, oh God, is just whatever, know that that's where you are. You got to get over here. You got to get over here. So how are you going to get there? You can use some of the activities I've shown you, or you can find your own version, like my baler. You know, I don't care what it is, or cleaning the counter, you know, scribbling on the counter while you clean it. It doesn't matter. But you figure out, what is it? Is it the melody, the rhythm that you need? You know, what is your body dependent on? I'm going to talk about the melody rhythm thing for just a minute. As I've mentioned, Dr. Bruce Perry, who's the foremost authority on childhood trauma, I think, in the world. And that he said is whenever a person experiences trauma, the most important thing is to restore balance in the brain stem. And this is done through repetitive, rhythmic movement. Scribbling is that, walking is that, folding the laundry is that, you know, raking leaves can be that, but it's intentional. Now, he says when there's trauma, that's that. For me, things that I have observed, you know, especially in adults, is that it doesn't have to be the original trauma. It can be something that triggers the memory of that trauma. If that trauma, you know, and it only takes something as simple as somebody raising an eyebrow the same way the eyebrow was raised when somebody was hitting you or somebody was yelling at you or it doesn't take much to trigger this part to take over. So in a culture, especially what we're going through now globally with the pandemic, is that our job is really, it's like our biggest job is how much time can we keep ourselves here? You know, how can we get ourselves back? You only have to turn on the radio or listen to somebody on the phone or, you know, look at I mean, we're going here. All roads go here these days. And our job is to get here, not just for ourselves, but for the whole world. Because I think Gandhi said, I'm paraphrasing this, like one pure heart radiating love can counterbalance thousands of fear. So, and think of us that, you know, yes, we're doing our social distancing, but people are still sharing energy fields. We're still energetically touching each other. And so if you can be here and that you can affect somebody else, help somebody else go here. Not by saying anything, not by talking about it, no theory, anything like that, just a smile and a wave intentionally. Okay, so today we are going to focus on the next step, which is drive movement with the breath. The breath is not an afterthought. The breath is the driving force. So back to when I was teaching the acrobatic movement meditation, how was I able to get that elderly man who had never really exercised in his life to be able to do that? Is I taught him how to drive his movement with his breath. Okay? So how we do this is we're going to do the fourth activity in the I Create What I Believe program. It's called the Labyrinth. It's real simple. We're just going to draw a spiral. But it's not so simple because you can only move your crayon on an exhalation. So that means that we close our eyes, we take 3 deep breaths, and then after that we take 1 more deep breath. And when you're exhaling, you need to make a sound. It's just a soft sound, but the reason for the sound is so that you are aware of when you run out of breath. Most people are not aware of their breathing at all. It's an afterthought. It's kind of something they drag behind themselves. So what I'm wanting you to do is and after you close your eyes, you take the 3 deep breaths. Now you can do this activity with your eyes open or your eyes closed. And what we do is we spiral in 3 times. And then when you get to the center, you come out again. And you can either draw new lines or you can trace the ones that you've done. So why do we start at the outside? Well, I normally use this activity when I'm fragmented, I'm all over the place, and I need to pull myself in. We're going to do this. You're going to take 3 deep breaths, and as you are, after that, you take 1 more breath, and I ran out of breath. What do I have to do? Ran out of breath. What do I have to do? get to the center, and then come back out again. So do that. When you're done, raise your hand. And I'm also going to have Patricia unmute people because I want to hear about your experience. Okay. Okay. So how was the experience? Anybody?
Interesting.
I felt like my breath was actually deeper. My inhale was deeper than I normally am able to get just because I wanted a longer exhale.
Good. Good. So play with this when you're doing just everyday things. Really see if you can really become more aware of your breath and more aware of using the breath to move the body. And then look at, are there areas in your life where you do that instinctively? Because maybe you played a sport or you knew how to did a certain recipe, that you just do it instinctively versus places you don't do it instinctively. Because you're wanting to just spread your awareness. Think of it as frosting, you want to spread it a little further out into your everyday life. Because when you have that awareness, in more areas of your life, then you have more opportunities to be able to make change. Remember I said last week when I was talking, I said, it's all about changing the percentage. That if you're not working on it, the average person's system is run 95% of the time here. But the only way you can consciously choose to create the life you want is when you're here. So if you're only there 5% of the day, it's going to take a lot of years to accomplish something. A lot of years, and maybe never. But if you change the percentage, so driving your movement with your breath is also a trick to getting here. It's how I got that guy to be able to do handstands and cartwheels. I just kept making him be here. Be here, be here, be here, be here, be here. That's it. It's real simple. But it isn't, because we're so used to this part just handling things for us. But it might not be handling things the way we want them to be handled. So the only way you have a choice is if you're here. So for review today is you have, pay attention. Is it the rhythm? Is it the rhythm? Is it the pulse? Is it the speed, that is most important? Because all of these might not be important to you. Your system is probably driven more by one versus the other. So pay attention. And how do you know if the rhythm is right? Then your melody is right, and you feel, you might not be off the charts happy, but you're not stressed, you're not overwhelmed, you're not, thinking negative things. You're just kind of like, yeah, I'm cool. I'm cool. Hey, pattern. Pay attention. What do circles do? What do lines do? Remember, you're reprogramming yourself. Just like a computer programmer programs a computer. You are reprogramming here. So pay attention. Is it circle? How do circles affect you? How do lines affect you? And then incorporate it. Remember I said, you can do circles, while you're talking. You can do lines while you're talking. You can, you don't have to have a crayon and a piece of paper. You can do it on your body. You can do it with your arms. You can find your way. Translate this. Translate this so that it's easy for your system. Okay? And then, driving force. Don't drag your breath behind you. That's your engine. I read a statistic by Mitchell Gaynor and said that the average person only uses something like 20% of their lung capacity. So it means that you're only using, it's like filling up your gas tank, but then only being able to use 20% of that. Every time you fill up your gas tank, you only can use 20%. That's not very effective. So drive your movement with your breath. Then if you want to go faster, you'll push out more air. And if you want to go slower, you'll push it out slower. But remember, that's your engine. That's your engine. So anybody have any questions?
Hear me?
Yep, I can. That's
Okay.
why I unmute you guys.
One of the things that I'm finding is I thought I was a circle person,
Uh-huh.
and the more I'm realizing some of the things, I'm becoming more conscious of the things I'm doing. I'm seeing more lines of appealing, like in my surroundings, or I'm straightening a rug. It's because the rug's got to be just so, and it's surprising me because in drawing, I didn't feel the same way that I'm seeing in my life. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes, exactly.
So I'm kind of being shocked a little bit by it because I thought I was a circle person, and then I'm realizing, well, I know it's both, right? It's both. They serve us both, right?
Right. And so, okay, so that's a really good question, because what you want to do is you want to pay attention to what do the straight lines give you,
Okay.
and what do the circles give you.
Okay.
And because when you're saying straightening the rug and stuff, immediately my system goes, oh, she's just trying to apply some order because there is so much chaos happening where she lives that she's trying to counterbalance that.
Yes. Very good. That's very accurate.
Yeah, totally. You live in Germany, right?
No.
No, you're in New York.
I'm in New York. Yes.
You're in New York. Okay, so you're in New York, and your system innately is trying to maintain balance in you while there's complete chaos going on outside. And this is how brilliant the body is.
Wow.
So when that dies down, probably go back to a little more circles.
Okay.
But for right now, it's like, wait a minute, we're building walls here.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Marie.
No, you're
Thank
very
you.
welcome. Anybody else? No? Okay. See you guys next Monday.
Okay.
Have a great week. And follow your thread.